Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming. Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Good morning, councillors. I will open the meeting for Tuesday the 23rd of November. Thank everyone for your attendance. I'd like to, acknowledgement of country, I'd like to acknowledge that we begin with our traditional custodians in the land in which we meet today, the Drummle people, and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to our neighbouring Aboriginal peoples within our local government area, the Gungaloo Nation people, the Barada, Cabelbarra and Yetamarala people. Also acknowledge the Torres Strait Islander people whose land is in the Torres Straits but who live and work on Aboriginal land. We have no apologies. Apologies, leave of absence for granted for Councillor Fisher. Confirmation of the previous minutes. Councillors, could I seek a confirmation for the previous minutes? Councillor Smith and Councillor Wickerson. I'll put that. Councillors, those in favour, those opposed, motion is carried. Declarations, item 5, declarations and interests on matters of the agenda. We have quite a number of them today, councillors, so we work our way through them. Councillor Smith, item 11.8.
Yeah, 11.8. I've got a couple in that one. The first one being the Alliance Maintenance Facility, as it's a development at the airport. Because my niece and her husband own properties at 48 Hunter Street and 60 Hunter Street. That's also applies to 11.9, Airport Precinct Feasibility Study Project, which is talking about the levy, and that's for the same reason. Then back to 11.8, the capital project report, Mount Morgan Water Security, because my nephew is a partner in MTC who have commenced a contract to cart water to Mount Morgan, and my brother is employed to drive the water tanker, and I'll be, all my conflicts, I'll be leaving the room. And there's also 11.12 federal election advocacy priorities, Gracemere Sale Yards building, upgrade. I sold my cattle through the sale yards, and so does all my family and relations. So I'll be leaving the room when that one's discussed as well.
Thanks, Councillor. We have a number of other councillors. Councillor Shane Latcham with 11.6.
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just to inform the meeting that I have a prescribed conflict of interest in item 11.6, surrender and unclaimed animal policy. The prescribed conflict of interest arises as I volunteer for Capricorn Animal Aid, who may receive funds from the policy. Thank you.
Councillor Wickerson.
Oh, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a query. On the agenda that I've got, at least, there's no 11.8. It goes 11.7, 11.9. Is that a typo, or?
11.
Was,
It is, but it's not bookmarked apparently, so
Oh,
might be
okay.
our agendas haven't got the number on there. Can we clarify that? 11 point.
11.8 Mr Mayor. So yeah, if you go to click on 11.9 and scroll backwards, it's up above it. It's nothing's hidden in the agenda.
Thank you. Well, it's, thanks for picking that up. We can, at least it's noted now. Business outstanding, nil. Public forums, deputations, presentation of petitions. Councillor Rutherford, do you have a petition there to be tabled? If you'd like to speak to that, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I'd like to present a petition on behalf of residents within my division that have concerns. They live in proximity to the south side of the barrage and they have considerable concerns with illegal fishing. Now, this has been going on for quite some time. It goes back years, actually, and there was an alarm system put in, cameras and alarm, which has worked for a while, but now the illegal fishing is happening so often that that alarm is continually going off day and night, so we've had to cut that back a little bit. But the residents there are dealing with, you know, large numbers of people coming through trespassing. They're actually going through people's yards to get there, using their taps to clean fish. They're leaving all the waste behind. They're leaving rubbish from their utes all over the road, and just generally it's an appalling condition. So I have spoken to officers about this. I think a fence is probably one of the ways we could probably look at doing something there, but I think it's probably more important that a report comes back to council. It gives a number of options for the table to consider to see whether there's something we can do. It's really brazen. Most people are knowing now that this is really the Department of Fisheries to police. It's not council, but it doesn't matter. Phone calls to the Department of Fisheries, even with phone calls to the police, the reaction time is so slow that I guess community members have learnt that, you know, they can get there and get away with fish. And it's not fair. It's the fish barrage, the fish ladder, and it's just so easy picking. It's not fair for the fish either, actually. Got some feedback happening, so given that's happening, I think I'm going to leave it there and ask for council support that the meeting, the petition be received and that we call for a report.
Yeah, just with the echoes. With the fishing forum, this has been previously there, the net-free zone forum on Friday. It's been an issue that's been raised there over a number of years, and again, it's the jurisdiction of who can police it. Deal with that. We've got the gremlins in the works this morning, councillors, unfortunately. But look, I'm happy to second that one, councillor. As I mentioned before, it's something there that's been an issue for many years and something that's been discussed at the fishing forums previously. So on that note, I'm sure that'll be well received when I speak to the forum on Friday, that there's a report coming on options that we can look to maybe put some barriers up to stop that in the long run. If we're not unable to have the authority to be able to police it, it's a difficult one, and QPS are probably, their resources are stretched in other areas. I'd imagine this is probably not a high priority for them, unfortunately. We might just wait while we iron out these. So okay. Well, I'll put those in favour. Those opposed, motion's carried unanimously. Thanks, Councillor Rutherford. Item 9, the committee reports. 9.1, the Audit and Business Improvement Committee meeting from the 18th of November 2021. The minutes from that meeting be approved. Could I seek a second on that? Move Councillor Latcham, seconded Councillor Smith. Any discussion around the accuracy of those minutes, councillors? Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just overall very happy with all the reports, in particular the interim report for the Bushfire Prevention Governance Review, and it's a very timely reminder. I'm glad they're looking into that. So I look forward to the second stage of that. So I'm very happy with that report.
Thank you. If there are no further questions on that, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Delegation reports nil. Officers 11.1, the Rocky Nats trade fees and charges. Thanks, Greg. Would you like to present that report, please?
Morning, Mayor and councillors. Yes, we are venturing within our time planning and such starts, so that has been going all year, but certainly now time to put into action our Rocky Nats plan, and this is one of the steps that's required by council to approve the trade stalls, which includes whether it be the trade in our sponsors and automotive type products, or our food stalls that support us along the way, mostly at the Burnouts and Showgrounds precinct as well. But that's helping those local businesses from the food vendor side. They loved the event last year. They love River Festival, so they'll be lining up again for this one as well. But and our aim is to try and promote more and more into the automotive industry and get more of those trade stalls, work with Summer Nats to increase the numbers there. Some slight increases from last year. We work very closely with the Summer Nats team to benchmark what they charge at Summer Nats in Canberra and Red Nats at Alice, then try and balance that with what we would normally charge with one of our events. So obviously we do not charge as much as Summer Nats, but we charge a little bit more than River Festival because where our numbers are much higher for this event. So, yeah. So it's pretty self-explanatory. It's similar to the report that was presented earlier this year for Rocky Nats 01, with some slight increases, which we feel can be managed.
Thanks, Greg. Just the number of sites and the bookings, how are they going?
Yeah, so at this stage, Mayor, we haven't gone out heavily. This is really the important part, it's going out with the costing. So our sponsors are lining up very quickly, so they'll be right, but they don't actually pay a fee because it's part of their sponsorship. So this is really the step of making sure we can really actively hit the market, both for sponsorships, which is a separate thing, but also trade stalls as part of that along the way. Food truck vendors are already calling, so that's a good sign. So they are ready. We had 22, I think, food truck vendors last year. And I think we'll have more this year because they've seen the success of the event. So they're calling. We'll hit them first, but then we'll put a dedicated resource onto sponsorship and trade stalls. And sorry, Mayor, just to give you a number from last time around, trade stalls was 30 last year, or this year, sorry, in 2021, and food stalls were 22.
So is there scope to increase that if there's interest there, Greg?
Yeah, there's certainly interest, Mayor, after Rocky Nats 01, where people, both on that food side of things, but also on the trade. And I think we didn't have a lot of local take-up last time. Summer Nats brought a lot of those 30 players, so I think there may be some local take-up in Rocky Nats 02, and that's our plan.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Councillors, any questions to Greg at all? Oh, I'm happy to move that one. Seek a seconder. Councillor Kirkland, I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, Greg. Moving on to 11.2, submissions to the Rockhampton Regional Council Memorial for John and Margaret Shannon. Thanks, Alicia.
Good morning, Mayor and councillors. This was a request made by Mr Ross Shannon, who is attempting to get a memorial across the entire state in terms of where his family have been, of which Rockhampton is part of that. So, councillors, we have commenced working on a policy to deal with these types of requests. However, when I discussed with Mr Shannon around the timing of the policy, he's sort of trying to celebrate 150 years sort of celebration early next year, so it didn't fit in line with his timelines. So I said that I would put the matter to council, but the recommendation is that the answer is no at this stage. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I applaud Mr and Mrs Shannon and their desire to have a memorabilia, a memento of their family's heritage in the region and everything. I think that Council's current position on putting together a policy around this is a really good idea, so thank you to the officers who are putting that together and look forward to seeing it. I've also seen the Serena Field of Dreams memory lane. I don't know if any of the other councillors are familiar with that, but potentially down the path, down the track, I think this is something where we could accommodate one of Mr Shannon's things. Is that something that you're going to be putting into the motion, into your reports, or?
So just to respond back through you, Mr Mayor, and the policy at the moment has certainly discussed the types of things, whether or not anyone can buy a memorial for their family, what places those memorials should go, or whether or not it needs to be a significant benefit, what length of time those memorials should be in place for. So we've commenced some of those discussions through our communities workshop, but as yet we haven't got that clear direction of council. So.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm not saying it's no, but I'm not saying it's yes.
Yeah, I think that's something we can discuss at a further workshop. I think it has been something that's been mooted, but we need to get some clarity on what that is. So I think there's options there, and if there are other examples there that we can consider, then something there we need to workshop and work our way through.
Thanks.
A number of other lights, Councillor Wickerson, then Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, just to also acknowledge the passion that Mr Shannon has. I know we've had frequent phone calls from him, and I understand his passion for that. And I don't want to speak too much specifically about his situation, but just generally, it's good that this matter at least is brought to our attention, that we don't have a policy around it, because it is important to acknowledge families and individuals that have made a contribution to the region, and that's something I think which will form part of the important part of the policy. Is because I think Councillor Rutherford and I have chatted, it's not that a particular family might have been here for 100 years, but just been regular members of the community and not made an overwhelming contribution, or you could have been here for 10 years and changed the world. So it's not time. Initially I thought this might have been a good opportunity to fundraise for other heritage activities, but then I changed my mind on that after conversations we've had, because it shouldn't be someone that can afford to pay 20 or 30,000 for a memorial that gets one, and someone else that has a lot of merit that maybe can't afford that. So I've changed my mind on that. It was a mistake. And I was thinking probably along the lines of our philanthropy, and I'll get to that in a second. So I don't think it should be about who can afford the memorial, because that actually devalues people that are more deserving, maybe. And again, not speaking about this one specifically, because this may well come back when we've got the policy developed and we'll reassess it, and it may well get up, but that's for time to come. But for now, I absolutely support this recommendation. But just on options for Mr Shannon in this case, there's always the philanthropy contribution to the new Museum of Art, which I think the previous Director of Art Gallery might have raised with him, and I don't think he was interested in that, but I think that rather than just saying flat out no, just say, well, look, not a memorial on a sandstone block or a seat or something, but there's always an opportunity through the gallery to have your family name there. It is only for 10 years, but then there's an option to renew that. So I think rather than just saying no, say, well, look, not this one, but maybe the other one. So I'm happy to support this when it comes. Thank you.
Thanks,
Sorry, Mr Mayor, if I could just add as well, I guess in my first discussions with Mr Shannon, and he has been sort of talking to us for quite some time, I sort of underestimated some of those issues that would come out in those policy discussions. So I think we do need to take that time to work through those.
Okay, thanks, Alicia. Councillor Smith?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I feel for the family. I have been contacted by a relation of John and Margaret. Of Ross Shannon. And it appears that our council's the only one that hasn't jumped on board. I think they've also approached other councils where they've been associated with, like Isaacs and Central Highlands, I think. And I appreciate that we need a policy. Otherwise, it can get untidy, like a lot of things. But I really feel for the family, and obviously they did have some connection to Crescent Lagoon, which was interesting reading. But I just wanted to ask Alicia, with the recommendation, it says pending further policy development, does that mean that this request will come back after the policy is developed, or will they have to reapply?
So back through the chair, I would anticipate that the policy, once it's developed, it will, and I acknowledge what you're saying, is many other councils do have these type of policies. And once you establish a policy, it sort of says where those things can go and what sort of things we will look at. So once we do have those policy definition in place, well then I can certainly go back to Mr Shannon and see whether he is still interested at that stage. That was what I intended by the resolution. It's just I wasn't willing to recommend something to sort of just get him through his timeframes.
So could I suggest, Alicia, that send a letter after this decision, just to say that we're going through that process, but we'll look at it at
Happy to
that
reconsider it once.
stage.
I just wondered, does that need to be in the recommendation?
Oh, I don't think so. I think Alicia will be able to look after that. She was going to make contact in the first instance.
He emailed me just yesterday, so I'll get back to him.
Thanks very much, Alicia. So, Councillor Wickerson, you're happy to move. Do we have a seconder? And Councillor Kirkland, I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, Alicia. Moving on to 11.3, the tender consideration for Rockhampton Museum of Art weekend event. Thanks, John.
Through the Chair, good morning, councillors. So we have a report here that seeks Council's approval for the tender consideration plan, outlining the purchasing process that will be utilised for the coordination of the Rockhampton Museum of Art opening weekend. We recommend that pursuant to Section 235B of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council approve the tender consideration plan for the purchasing process that will be utilised for the coordination of the Rockhampton Museum of Art opening weekend. Just in the commentary there, you can see the Museum of Art will engage with our regional community and visitors across the opening weekend through programs that encourage participation and appreciation of visual arts, providing access to new national practising artists and arts, acknowledging the culture and the heritage of our region. The opening event will communicate this and welcome community for a weekend of engaging experiences of art, culture, displaying various exhibitions, highlighting many synergies to the exhibitions and programs offered at ROMA across the weekend. So probably don't need to read the rest for you all.
No, thanks very much, John.
These sort of reports.
There is a real buzz around the community in anticipation of this opening, so great to see the wheels in motion. Councillor Rutherford?
Just a question, if I could please, Mr Mayor, and that's probably around external activities that are being considered at the time. Is there many external activities, outdoor activities being considered for the opening, or is it?
Through the Chair, yes, we are considering those activities right now. Our new gallery director started yesterday. So we've got a range of contingencies on how we might utilise that, and what we're considering now is making sure, I guess, that the project of building this, the Rockhampton Museum of Art, is very important for what's inside the gallery space, but, you know, Council's ambitions for the centre of town and how things might, I guess, for want of a better term, bleed out just outside that. So we're certainly planning to meet some of that potentially within the courtyard, behind the Customs House, also the East Street link, and then maybe potentially a little bit to the front of the Rockhampton Museum of Art. However, we're going to be very keen to make sure that any disruption that does occur across that weekend is quite minimal as far as closing the riverbank goes. And in balance of sort of, we have applied for some degrees of funding, but also the division of the gallery director. I think just making sure that we demonstrate beautifully, I guess, the stature of this building, the collection that we have within it, but also demonstrate a little bit how these cultural institutions can help build that precinct feel. So we're just trying to make sure we fit the right balance there, also considering we're still waiting, we're pending the date. So we've got some plans that will move in shape.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it's important that we certainly highlight that it's a precinct as well as the art gallery.
Yeah.
So that's great to hear, but I'd also like to probably just a word of caution. That time of the year is very hot and very, very unpredictable with weather. So just to be aware of that, it's not a time where we can really confidently say that it's going to be comfortable.
And all those things we're taking into consideration, and just thinking about the budget situation of council, we're also really, really mindful of how we can sort of hit the right level with everything that's going on.
Yeah.
So
I'm
look
sure it'll
forward
be
to
done
developing
tastefully
that as we
and
go.
in the safest manner that we can.
Always.
Thanks very much, Councillor, and thanks, John. Councillor Wickerson, the Portfolio Chair.
Yep, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just to congratulate staff on putting a diverse program around, because I think it's important that this isn't... people have this perception about galleries and museums that they're very highbrow, and I think even with our previous art gallery director, that was trying to break those barriers down so that it's the whole community's gallery, not just councils or the elite art people, although they're owners as well. But just probably counter to that, and I think Councillor Rutherford and I have had chats, this would be a good opportunity, event-wise, to have a very high-level gala opening ball. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to open such a prestigious facility, and would also, you'd think, lend itself to some good fundraising opportunities with people that would really like to be there. I know we chatted briefly yesterday, I think at the night event with the Governor and Professor, whether they would like to come back up again. Apparently there's some issue. You've got to be careful around that, because a governor will trump up any other politicians about who cuts the ribbon, so you have to be a little bit careful, but I'm sure they express an interest in being there. But I just think this would attract a lot of people that are willing to pay a premium price to be there and to fundraise. So just for consideration. And I think Councillor Rutherford had some ideas about guest speakers that might pull a crowd too. So,
I'm not sure whether we're in that level of discussion at this stage.
No, just to flag that.
Yeah.
For
Just through the chair, what we'll try and ensure, not only as I described the use of the building and the space, but also ensure that we can hit the magic mark of having it feeling open and accessible to all of the public. Do have a special event which we're planning to be around the Gold Award, which is our established product, and then also ensure that we have a more civic opening event element to meet the needs of our funders. So all of those three things, we'll try and hit all of them. That's the plan.
Good plan. Thank you.
It's great to have a plan. Thank you.
Got to start somewhere.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, thanks, John. I've just got another question. Councillor
sorry.
Mathers?
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Just through you to John. John, once again, this is great to see that we're moving forward with the opening of the art gallery. There's a lot of people looking forward to it, and I think it's great that we're trying to make it a civic opening to cover all aspects and demographics. But I'm just very mindful that obviously this, we're spending ratepayers' money to, to fund this. I understand that there's money budgeted for it, but as we do these events, I'd like to just sort of ask that. Quite often we don't do a wash-up after these events to sort of see, as councillors, we go along to them, we see how they're attended and that sort of stuff, which is great. But I'd also like to have some sort of feedback after the event in regards to what the vendors that were there thought about it. Did they, was it worth their while? And also during this wash-up, it gives us a good opportunity to find out what we can do better and what we can change for something else we do. So I'd just like to see a report after the event, if that's okay.
Yeah, that may be something we need to run across the board, Councillor. I think that's something there that's important in the decision making and going forward. So it'd be great to see some feedback after a debrief about the impacts and benefits and disbenefits of the event. So work on that.
Without a doubt, that'd be great, Mr Mayor. It's just once again we can make decisions that we're making sure we're being making good use of the ratepayers' money. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks very much, John. Could I seek a mover? Councillor Wickerson, seconder. Councillor Mathers, I'll put that. Those in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to 11.4, the Gold Awards 2022. Thanks very much, Damon.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, good morning. Just following on from the previous report in relation to the Rockhampton Museum of Art, the report before you this morning relates to the processing of payment in relation to the 2022 Gold Award, which is due to be part of the opening of the new Museum of Art there in early 2022. The process in terms of payment of the $50,000 prize monies for this prestigious award relates to the bequest that Council received from the estate of the late Moya Gold. The trustees of the Mervyn and Moya Gold Trust provide Council with payment of those prize monies, for which Council then administers and awards to the winning artists. So in order to comply with Council's procurement policy and procedure, a resolution is before you this morning for consideration to, in effect, put that in place. But happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Damon. Councillor Wickerson as Chair.
Mr Mayor, just happy to move as recommended.
Okay, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Smith. Put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thanks very much, Damon. And moving on to 11.5, Rockhampton Museum of Art Long Gallery Commission.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors. This report provides a summary and details in relation to the commission that has been proposed and organised for the Long Gallery at the Rockhampton Museum of Art, again coinciding with the official opening there in early 22. I've tried to set out in the report the circumstances relating to that particular commission. Don't propose to go over that in any great detail. Of course, again, if there are any questions, happy to take.
Thanks, Damon. Questions, councillors? Councillor Smith?
I'd like to thank Damon and whoever else was at the workshop for enlightening us. I understand it a lot more now, and I can understand that after a year or so we might be sick of looking at that painting. But I just wondered if it then goes into our collection, is that a photo of it, or is it a small version of it that goes into our collection, and is that included in the 100,000?
So as part of the commission that we receive will be essentially a schema of instructions. I could perhaps liken it to a manual of sorts that will have all the materials, instructions and other documentation, including photographs during the commissioning process and photographs of the completed work to be able to form part of the collection item that then will allow for that artwork to be reproduced either by Rockhampton Regional Council or other institutions that may require that or request that collection item as a loan.
I think we're all going to become quite astute artists in the future, so judging arts and what it all entails, but no, we'll wait and see where that goes. Councillor Wickerson, then Councillor Kirkland.
Thanks, Mr Chair. Likewise, just to thank Damon. I did have some concerns going through this, and Damon, thank you for addressing many of those, and also I want to thank the General Manager. We've had many robust and rigorous conversations about art in general, and I appreciate that process too. But I just wanted to take the opportunity to put on record that Council's committed to contractual arrangements made by previous gallery director, and I think then it might have been the Art Gallery Trust, not the Philanthropy Board, just the timing of it, which we're sort of obliged to follow. Otherwise, there's all sorts of other legal issues if we try and counter that at this late stage. Not happy about that, and that's a discussion to be had still. So, but that said, and given the ephemeral nature of it that we've talked about, Damon, that and the report doesn't mention when that final stage of that ephemeral process will occur, that just that when that is being considered, whatever that time frame might be, if that could come back to the table just for just a bit of a final sign-off, and it may be shorter or longer, whatever, but just to come back before that final stage of the process occurs.
Yeah. And Councillor, again, that's a good point, and one that we need to understand that it's not a permanent fixture and something that'll be there for a time period, and we just need to understand that when the new director's there, he'll no doubt bring a report back, and I'm sure we'll all look at that with interest.
Yeah, so I wouldn't mind if I could just to add that into the recommendation, receive the report, and also, I don't know how to word it appropriately, but to bring back maybe a suggested date for that final stage of that particular commission, because it does have an end point. I didn't initially. I thought I was going to put a timestamp on it, but I don't want to do that. As the General Manager has pointed out, that the new Gallery Director will have quite mammoth task of putting together a whole program for the gallery, which may need that space. So I don't want to undermine that at all. But I'd like a bit of a heads up of when that happens, just for the potential community.
I'm sure as the portfolio chair, it'll be something that you'll be involved in as we go through. Process.
Through the chair. Yes, So just to respond to that one, so where you will establish that is in the exhibition plan for the gallery going forward. So we treat the Long Gallery just as the other galleries, so council will foresee that program, and then you'll be able to see how long that is intended from there. So it will actually be as part of the program or exhibition program moving forward.
Yeah. And Ms Mayor, this is probably an associated point, and it's, again, not specifically to do with this one, it's about the process of it, that I really applaud the Philanthropy Board that they engage really closely with the Darumble people, because this is a First Nations piece, and that's great. We should do that, and it's to avoid any cultural offence or issues that might arise, and I absolutely applaud that. But just thinking more broadly than that, the future acquisition process, I would like to explore that further, and I don't want to make any recommendation today because it would be very premature. We haven't had the discussion needed, but just to look at that process, whether we have the arts community and we have the Darumble community engaged to make sure we make the right decision, but as representatives of the whole community, I think we need to have an active role in that too, not to play censors by any means, but just to have that other perspective, and whether that's a joint board that we come together, or a joint committee or something, I don't know, but probably for discussion for down the track. And again, I don't want to offend the existing board. It's not about that at all. It's about broadening that engagement, just to make sure that we're making the best decisions in the public interest, because it is a public gallery, it's not a private gallery.
Yep. Thanks, Damon. Did you want to respond to that one?
Yes, through the Chair, Councillor Wickerson, as part of the process that we've been working through is addressing the, in terms of moving forward, the collection management plan in terms of Council's permanent collection, and also governance and processes and policies around the acquisitioning and deaccessioning of items of art, and that is something that we'll obviously work with the new director alongside John and Alicia, and look to bring something to future council workshop and then to the table for endorsement around what that might obviously look like to be the process for the new museum moving forward.
Thanks very much, Damon. Thanks, Councillor Wickerson. Councillor Kirkland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's just probably just a comment, really. And I thank you, Councillor Wickerson, for those requests. I think that they are great requests. I applaud those. And Damon, I look forward to hearing what those policies, seeing how they are shaped, and look forward to being a part of adopting those. Look, I really just wanted to say that the Philanthropy Board have done a magnificent job in getting that $100,000 in just 5 months from the commencement of going out and looking for donations. So I really wanted to say thank you to them for their hard work. That was my comment today, and congratulations to everyone involved.
Thanks, Councillor Kirkland. Councillor Rutherford.
Comment also, Mr Mayor, because I guess I've been quite outspoken on this one in workshops, and I'd also like to acknowledge the Philanthropy Board and in getting that money together to pay it. That said, I'm not sure I would encourage in the future money to be spent on something that is going to be painted over. You know, we're talking about $100,000 here that will be painted over in a period of, you know, whatever is that, 12 months or 2 years, and I just don't think that that is a good signal we should be sending to our community. So this is it. We can't change it. It is what it is for now, but certainly moving forward, I would hope that money invested in artwork is money that remains an asset in our gallery. And I note that the instructions to repaint it will be handed on, but you know, someone could repaint the Mona Lisa, but you know, it's certainly not going to be the Mona Lisa. So you know, the artwork is all about the artist. So I don't think that that's necessarily a sales pitch for me in any case. So I'm happy to support this, but not happy in how it happened.
No, again, Councillor Rutherford, I think robust discussions at those workshops and something there that we were, I think we all share those same concerns, but again, understanding that this process has moved on without too much involvement from us, but I think we move on now and make the most of what this artwork is going to be, because I'm sure our community is going to appreciate that as we take it forward. So that said, I think we've exhausted all the questions. Thanks very much for presenting the report, Damon. I'll seek a mover. Councillor Wickerson, seconder, Councillor Kirkland. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to planning and regulations, 11.6. Now, who has Councillor Latcham with the conflict in this one?
Good morning, Mayor and Councillors.
Thank you, Doug.
Moving on to the planning and reg part of the day, which we've all been looking forward to, I'm sure. The surrendered and unclaimed animal policy report, where we workshopped it earlier this year, but just in brief, the main changes to this is to include the RSPCA as an animal agency to be entitled to the incentive to rehoming dogs of $100 and cats of $50, and also to change the way that we give the incentive money to the animal agencies instead of each agency filling out a form per animal when they rehome it. What we'd like to do is do it every 6 months, just one form with all their animals, make it easier for the agency, make it easier for us, and also cap that figure of $100 for a dog and $50 for a cat, and give a percentage of what's in the budget. They're the only changes to the report. So,
good on you. Thanks very much, Doug. Portfolio, Councillor Mathers.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to say thanks very much to Doug and his team for the work on this one, Mr Mayor. I think it's really important that the RSPCA, along with the other animal protection groups that are involved, I think the more that we can have involved there, the better, the more chances we've got to rehome animals. So I thought it was very timely that you made these changes and brought it to the table, Doug. So thanks very much, and I'm happy to move it.
Okay, thank you. Question, Councillor?
Oh, no, just a comment that I think that's a good move, Doug, with not having to process every single one. I think that's time-consuming and a lot of red tape, and that's a really good result which you've come up with. I'm happy to second.
Yeah, thanks. Second, Councillor Smith, and thanks again, Doug, and the team presenting that report. It will be well received. But that said, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor. We will invite Councillor Latcham back into the room. At 11.7. No conflicts on this one. Thanks very much, Amanda.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. The development application we received is for a proposal to convert an existing warehouse into a medium impact industry use for a vehicle repair shop. Let me see if I've got this. That's the location. It'll be in the first larger shed in the middle of the site. The proposal includes the use of a wash bay along the western wall of the warehouse under an existing shelter unenclosed carport structure, while 2 enclosed spray paint booths are proposed on the northern wall of the warehouse, which will be internal to the building. The existing footprint and the impervious site cover of the building and hardstand areas will not be increasing as part of this development application, and all vehicle repairs will take place within the existing building. There's just a site plan, so the car parking external to the shed will just be used for parking purposes only. There won't be any repair work undertaken in that outside area, and there'll be, as you can see, the wash bay area outside, which will be under, as I said, an enclosed structure, and then the remaining of all the works will be undertaken in the enclosed building. The site is zoned low impact industry. The application is consistent with the purpose of the zone. The low impact industry zone recognises that medium impact industry uses may occur in the zone where the nature of the operations do not create any greater impacts than the low impact industry, as stated in the planning scheme. Public notification. So there were 7 properly made submissions, including a petition of 44 people and 1 not properly made submitter. I've identified the location of the immediate submitters. Obviously, I couldn't put all the submitters mapped on the PowerPoint presentation, but this shows all the ones in the immediate surrounding area. All the other submitters are, scattered throughout various areas of the region. As outlined in my report, I provide a summary addressing the concerns raised. Essentially, the main concern was amenity impacts from it being medium impact industry and a low impact industry zone. Specialist reporting has been provided, which demonstrates a proposed development will not generate adverse noise or odour, air quality impacts that have potential to affect the amenity, health and safety of the residents. The proposed spray painting activities are to be, as I said, wholly conducted in a brand new insulated prefabricated spray booths, which are designed and built to the minimum requirements and standards within the shed. No spray painting will occur outside of these spray painting booths. All vehicles will be repaired wholly within the warehouse. No outdoor areas or hard stand areas will be used to repair the vehicles. In addition, the number of vehicle movements to and from the site is not unreasonable for what is expected in an industrial zone, for an industrial use in an industrial zone. Furthermore, adequate conditions have been placed on the approval to ensure the amenity is protected. So if you look under the operating procedures heading in the conditions, we've conditioned hours of operation, which are less than what the scheme says. We've also conditioned, just to cover ourselves as well, that all vehicle repairs be carried out within the existing building. No storage or parking or loading can occur in those common property areas that are shared with the other industrial uses within the complex. All tow trucks must enter and exit the site via the access driveway in Alexander Street, which is a B double route. We've got nuisance monitoring conditioned on there, plus we've got some conditions on there if you look under surface coating and spray painting on, regarding the spray booths, that they have to be constructed to Australian standards, and a certificate of the spray painting booth must be built and installed in accordance with those standards and provided to council prior to the commencement of the use. As the proposal generally complies with the provisions included in the codes and the planning scheme, we're recommending it for approval subject to the conditions outlined in the recommendation. That's it. Any questions?
Thanks very much, Amanda. Questions, councillors? Councillors Rutherford?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Amanda, the spray paint panel beating business, is that zoned, or is that considered medium impact industry or light?
It is considered, through the chair, it is considered as medium impact industry because of the spray painting component of it.
Okay, so then why, and you picked the very sentence that I picked out as well, so if the industry is considered medium impact industry, why then are we saying that its nature is low impact?
Yeah, because there's different, through the chair, because there's different degrees of industrial uses that provide additional impacts. The scheme does allow medium impact to occur in a low impact zone when it can demonstrate that those impacts are going to be of a similar nature. So in this instance, for example, spray painting, they're doing it within an enclosed spray booth in an enclosed building to begin with, so the impacts are minimal. If you compare that to, for example, a mining site that has all this mining equipment that operate 24 hours, that do spray painting and all other additional activities in relation to repairs on that mining equipment, and as I said, they normally operate 24 hours versus this business, and their traffic generation possibly could be higher. That will have a lot more impacts than someone who's doing some spray painting in a booth in an enclosed shed that's only operating within the hours specified in those conditions there. So the impacts are quite minimal in comparison. So it depends, it's defined per, so they put the type of categories of uses within the low, medium and high. But as I said, you may even have some high impact industry uses that their impacts can be mitigated to a point where they have similar impacts to medium. So it happens across the board, and that's why the scheme keeps it quite open there, that each application is assessed on its own merits, and we have that ability to approve it if we think those impacts are minimal.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Councillor Rutherford. Councillor Smith.
Oh yeah, just with the proposal in detail, Amanda.
Yeah.
It mentions 2 air vent stacks will be located on the western side of the roof. Now, are they to let the air in or take excess paint out, or
most
whatever
likely?
comes?
I'm not very up to date with spray booths, but they will be probably most likely both, I would assume. But we have had air quality testing. Reporting has been done on what will be, if there will be any impacts on the surrounding area, and that's come back that there won't be anything, and there was no mitigation measures recommended. And the spray booths are obviously designed in accordance with Australian standards, and to ensure that there won't be any environmental impacts from the booths.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a comment. You know, there's always going to be queries when we do industrial that back onto residential, and we've got it everywhere. Just another one. Thanks, Mr Chair. Why do they need to drop off cars on a Sunday? Seeing it's a residential area, people like peace and quiet on a Sunday, so why can't they leave them till Monday morning? Why does it have to be done on a Sunday?
I think you find the nature of their work is that if there is a car accident, for example, those vehicles, the tow trucks need somewhere to take them. So they won't be actually undertaking any panel beating or spray painting on those days. It'll be just purely if there is an accident and a tow truck has collected the vehicle, it'll go straight to that site to leave it basically in the car parking area there.
Mm-hmm. So how do we know they're not going to, just through the chair, how do we know they're not going to be transferring cars from their Southside depot or whatever on a Sunday? Like, is it only when there's an accident? And how can we strengthen that up so that it's only, you said it's going to be intermittent, but how can that be policed?
Well, we have conditioned that they're not to be operating on Sunday. So if there was any, I suppose, increase in activity on the site, we could cover that under that condition if we thought that they were unreasonably entering and exit the site in a manner that concluded that the activity was actually, the use was occurring.
Amanda, I highlighted the same area, and I was just curious to find out the hours of operation on the Sunday. You say it's sporadic and irregular. Could we condition it to the midday hours or the some times around that? Or well, I'm not sure what the times are for the Sunday, and it'd be a truck beeping in and reversing early on a Sunday morning or late on a Sunday evening. I'm just not sure what the hours of operation would be on a Sunday. If they were just dropping off a smash vehicle.
I think for the proposed use that may cause some issues, because if an accident happens, you can't predict what time a vehicle accident is going to happen, and then they've got to drop the vehicle off somewhere, and we don't want vehicles stored, in random places throughout the region. So at least there's an allocated place to take them. We've also got to highlight too and realise Alexander Street is a B-double route with 10,000 vehicles that go through that site a day as well. So those tow trucks will only be entering from Alexander Street and coming in, dropping it off and leaving.
So what's the hours of operation on the Sunday though? It could be.
We haven't got any hours. We've got no operations on Sunday. They said they would just, as I said, they won't be operating as such. They would just be coming in and dropping those vehicles off. Whether they can drop those vehicles off at a different location, but it's very difficult. If they did drop it off at another site, they've still then on Monday morning got to transport those cars from that site in, and that means another move, tow truck.
Councillor
Mr
Smith?
Mayor, I'd like to further query that, because when you have and I've had a few pranks probably in my life, some of them not my fault, you've got to do the claim first. Your insurance company then tells you where your car's going to go. So if you have an accident on the weekend, I'm just trying to understand how they would know to drop them off at that place to repair it. Because, you've got to go through the process, and then your insurance company will tell you where to take it. And on a Sunday, on a weekend, they don't work. So I'm just trying to understand how they would know to drop it off there, because of dealing with insurance companies.
No, I don't think you can put that to the application, Council. I think that's a insurance business side of it, where it's not part of the planning process.
Okay. So I've just got one more, Mr Mayor, sorry
Yep.
to take up all the time. My favourite thing with industrial is landscaping. And I know you've said that there's refer to the landscaping plan, but it doesn't give us an example. Can I please see where we're going to have landscaping?
Yeah, so it will
especially
be the existing landscaping on the site. I don't know whether it'll be very clear on the first.
Saw little things that looked like 3 round trees. I was thinking they might have been trees, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah, it's probably, sorry, that picture's probably not the best, but I did go for a second site inspection this morning as well to have a drive-by. But there is landscaping where that tree is in the middle there, basically. There is a little landscaping along the front bit. It's quite difficult with this site because if you see where the tree is, that's within their property. It's all hard stand area, which is already established, plus the access road in where you've got the landscaping, the landscaping on the other side of the site, that is all within common property, so that's owned by the body corporate and has to be maintained by I would assume, by the body corporate, because it's all those sheds within that vicinity and within that same complex. So the only, that landscaping, we don't have much ability to increase that because that's, to do with the whole complex as a whole. As I said, they have got some landscaping internal to their lot boundaries, which is all along the front. If they increase the landscaping any further, they wouldn't actually be able to it'd be where the car parking area is in, and they're required through that access road to turn into the car parks. Obviously, there's no ability to put landscaping in front of that.
Okay,
So the site is a little bit restricted on how much additional landscaping we can provide.
So up the top there, that's body corporate.
Yeah, so
what
if you
about
can
along
see that
Thomas?
light white line around the shed, yeah, it's probably not. So the whole access strip. Does that work? I tried to. Oh, hang on, maybe the on button would help.
You've got a flash.
There we go. So see that white, that's a boundary there and along there. So all this area here, all this landscaping area, all that is common property. And that little island of landscaping, that's all within the common property, which is part of this building here and this building here.
Oh, okay. So just through the chair. So common property for that industrial block there.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's no landscaping already at the back of those houses there in Thomason Street?
No, there is some grassed area, but yeah, no, I wouldn't call it substantial landscaping. There is a tree and there's garden beds basically from about here that go sort of around that front area there, internal to their site. That's the only landscaping they've got internal to their site. All the other landscaping is within the common property. And as I said, it's quite difficult because their site is already established and it's all hard stand already, so they'd literally have to dig up and remove car parks. And considering the site isn't fronting a street as well. We believe that there's sufficient landscaping along and buffer along that boundary there because it's set back quite a bit from the building.
Yeah. And can I just one more question?
Yeah.
Can I ask, is there a fence already along the back of Thomason Street there?
Yeah, from memory, I did, as I said, I did go out there this morning, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's a solid fence, but there is a fence
Yeah.
along there.
Councillor Kirkland?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes. I do have a couple of questions for you, Amanda. Firstly, I noted that you mentioned earlier that the zoning needed to demonstrate businesses of a similar nature. Would you mind telling us the nature of the businesses surrounding this particular application?
Yeah. So we've got a gym, warehouse. And then there's, I think there was an auction place. I'm not sure what's occurring through here, but there has been previously like it was industrial, but had sort of like a commercial nature to it as well, operating from that. And then over in these other sites at the rear of this site, there's probably a mix of low and medium impact industry there, because you had obviously backs off onto sites like James Kelly that were obviously they're not operating at the moment, but they had a range of industrial activities occurring there.
Yeah, I think probably my concerns are more around that entire 57 Alexandra Street there, given that it's backing onto the residents, more so that those businesses that are surrounding, in fact, do demonstrate businesses of a similar nature. And it sounds to me by some of those businesses being retail and storage and a gym, probably don't. They're not consistent with that. That's my question around, observation, and clearly it's your call on that. But I also wanted to ask you about the same thing as Mayor and Councillor Smith have mentioned, the trucks coming in at 7:30 in the morning, beeping and raising their trays and letting letting vehicles off on a Sunday. I would consider, given the business types and everything that are there, those residents are now going to be exposed to something that they've not been exposed to before, and I actually question whether that is consistent. And I'd like to ask whether there's a gate on the entrance from Thomason Street that's going to prevent trucks from going through that way. It would potentially be, I don't know, another access point if they've come from another direction. There might be their choice to go through that way, and again, disturbing those residents that previously have not been exposed to this type of disturbance. I also note that conducting the business is going to be from 7:30 in the morning every single day, which is concerning as well. I'm not 100% convinced that this is a consistent business. Another observation that I'd like to note is that I've been out there and have had a look at what the other businesses are, and I've also had a look at the fact that the applicants have already fully fit out the business with signage and everything else. Is that normal when we haven't seen the application come before council for the actual business? Is that how things actually are meant to happen? Is that how it normally happens?
Through the chair, it's not ideal. Obviously, we prefer people to get their land use approval before they undertake. Obviously, I've been out on site, they've painted it and put their business sign up and everything. But it does happen when businesses are under, time constraints, when they're, opening or moving their businesses to different locations. At this stage, there's nothing council can do about it because they've submitted an application for their land use approval. So this does happen a fair bit where even if previously we've taken compliance action, once they submit an application, there's nothing we can do till that application's decided. It does unfortunately happen. As far as your other questions, I'll just make sure I've covered them all. With the hours of operation, we've also got conditions on there regarding nuisance monitoring. So if there are any complaints with the residents, they do have to put some mitigation measures in place if we do find that there are any issues. Also, a lot of the businesses around there, I would assume, I don't exactly know the operation of the gym, but they're this morning when I drove in there, all the businesses seemed to be operating, and that was quite early. So they would be operating, if not the same hours, but more than what this facility is proposing. And I suppose in low impact industry zones, you can get a range of activities. So I'm not looking at this just what's in this small vicinity. I'm looking at what is low impact industry as a whole throughout the region and what the scheme specifies as low impact industry, and what impacts, I suppose, determine whether it's medium or high as well. So we look at traffic generation. For example, that site, if that was a warehouse with a floor area of that size, would generate, that engineers have reviewed it, probably almost double the amount of vehicle trips per day than what's currently or what's proposed there now. So,
Okay, if I may.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, that's concerning as well in the event that they potentially will exceed what they've suggested they're going to be doing, potentially.
Through the chair, they can't. They've got no room. If you have a look at the floor plan, I think that's. Is there another one? Oh, maybe I removed that one. Sorry, there was one with the floor plan. But internal to the site, there's obviously bays where they're working on the vehicles. There's nowhere, I suppose, to expand outside of that shed because there's no room. But as I said, their vehicle trips are probably less than half of what a warehouse. So under that zoning at the moment, it's zoned low impact industry. A warehouse can go, or had existing use rights for a warehouse to begin with. So a warehouse could go in there tomorrow without even coming to council. And with that floor space, as I said, it's approximately double the amount of vehicle trips, or over double the amount of vehicle trips that this use would propose. And as I said, there's nowhere for this use to expand because it's all internal to this. I understand it's a very large shed, but everything's happening within that shed. It's physically impossible for them to do more than what they're doing. And we've also conditioned that parking and all manoeuvring has to happen within their lot. They can't let it overspill into that common property, so that means there should be no impact for those nearby businesses within that complex.
My other question was around those car parks, whether those car parks are for customers or whether they're for the wrecks that are going to be towed in on the trucks, and whether the whole thing's going to be surrounded by wrecks or whether they're all enclosed inside the actual facility out of sight. I don't know how that works. I don't know how they could do that. And further to that, while I've got the mic, have the applicants actually applied for this facility in another area that's medium impact industrial?
Have these particular, through the chair. I'm not sure whether they have. I'm not familiar whether they've applied anywhere else. And with the car parking, so the car parking will be a mix. It will be for staff. I think a big chunk of the car parking will be utilised for staff. There will be vehicles that need repair work or mechanical work parked in there that they will rotate and drive into the shed. And as I said, all that works will be undertaken within the shed. And the shed is it's probably a bit, I'm sure you've been out on site, but it's a very big shed, and the floor space in there fits several. I've sort of done a rough count of the amount of vehicle spaces, and there's look to be about 40. You know, there's quite a lot of space in there for them to undertake the work. So,
okay, Mr. Mayor, I do have my one last question. Thank you so much for indulging me. The conditions that you've put on this, how do we monitor that? Do we wait for complaints or before going out and double checking that they're adhering to all of the things that you've said, or is there a follow-up check once they've started operating?
Through the chair, so we have as you'll be aware, a compliance section. So they do, once we approve an application and we're aware the use has commenced, they will do a compliance inspection on the site and go through the conditions. Some of these conditions these conditions sit against that land forever, and just because one day they're complying, you know, if there is any issues down the track, then we would send compliance out and go through that process if there is any issues. But they would definitely do an audit of those conditions once the use commences. And then if there's any, we've got those conditions against that property basically for the life of the use. And if there is any issues raised in the future, then those conditions there, we can take enforcement action if need be.
Thank you for answering my questions.
thank
Thanks,
you.
Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Kirkland. Councillor Rutherford.
Dumb question, please, Mr Mayor, and that's because, unlike Councillor Smith, I try to not crash my vehicles. But, so once a vehicle has had an accident, a tow truck comes and gets it and takes it to this place. So what happens if that's in the middle of the night?
Yeah, well, I suppose if there is any issues with complaints in that regard, we've got the noise monitoring condition in there.
Yeah, that
So,
does...
but we do got to remember, they'll only be entering from Alexander Street, and those, and there's quite a big buffer, like there's quite a big setback from those houses in, is it Thomason Street? And Alexander Street has is a B-double route, so it's, as I said, about 10,000 vehicle trips.
Yeah.
Vehicles there a day.
My concern is, my experience has been, there's lots of places that have traffic noise and people tend to learn it's a constant and they learn to live with it. Reversing beepers, however, are a totally different thing, particularly when it's in the middle of the night or in the early hours of the morning. So, and generally by the time these businesses are operating, it is very, very difficult for a complainant who is living nearby to have anything changed. You know, anyone that's been at this table for any length of time will tell you how difficult it is to deal with some of those things. So I get the proposal, I get everything else, and I could live with everything else.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can live with the times being 24 hours. And I think the point Councillor Smith was trying to make is that if you have to wait to choose where you're going to send your vehicle once it's been crashed, why does it have to go to that site there and then in the middle of the night?
Yeah, through the chair, the way we've conditioned it, we haven't allowed them 24 hours operation. They review these conditions knowing fully well that we've only conditioned those hours and that they may have tow trucks entering the site after those hours. There's probably a small element of risk on them if there are complaints, and we've got that condition with the nuisance monitoring that we could restrict those movements if there was complaints made and there was noise impacts from that. So we have got the ability with the conditions to mitigate that if there is any issues in the future. And the way they explained to me, I think it's that rare, as it was pointed out, normally with the insurance companies, you normally just don't randomly drop them there. I don't think it'd be a regular occasion that it would be occurring. That they weren't concerned that we had those hours of those conditions. They actually asked to have those hours reduced down. So just in goodwill for the submissions.
So I would have to ask, if it's that rare, why then can they not, why do they need it?
I think it's through the chair, I feel for their operations. I suppose I'm talking a little bit on their behalf, but from discussions I've had with the applicant, for their operations, the instances, as I said, that it does happen, they need somewhere to take the vehicles. I mean, we can restrict it. We could put something on there to restrict it, but I feel they're likely to come back and negotiate on that, but we can see what they come back with, but yeah.
Do you finish, Councillor Rutherford, any questions? Or are you still...
No, I think that's it, Mr Mayor. I don't know what our options are to discuss about the restricting of those hours, and whether, there's some discussion that could be had there, and that the table would be more comfortable with that.
I believe with the conditions we got in place that they're going to be adequate to cover, because we've got noise nuisance monitoring conditions on there, plus we've restricted their hours of operation. So I think there's enough on there if it became a big issue that we've got enough condition there that we could go down the compliance avenue for it.
Sorry, I'm a little confused. So we have hours of operation, but we have 24 hours.
No, so they're restricted, but because they said it's so rare that they're going to be randomly, as I said, on the odd occasion, dropping some vehicles off after hours. I suppose the activity itself isn't taking place, but because it's associated with that use, as I said, if we got any complaints about noise or issues with that, because we got that nuisance monitoring condition on there, one of the mitigation measures would have to be to cease the time that they're dropping, or could be the time that they drop those vehicles off. So we have got conditions in place to cover it. Yeah.
There's a clause there to basically say if there are complaints that come through, we're able to...
we can put some mitigation... and they've got to come up with the mitigation measures, but simply if the noise and nuisance is from the tow trucks, the only way to mitigate... It's not as though if it was noise from the use occurring, they could shut their roller door and so forth, but with their tow trucks, the only way to mitigate against that would to be actually not enter the site within that time.
Yeah.
So we have got that condition on there to cover those instances.
And that may be park off-site somewhere else until
yeah.
And that could be an option if those complaints come in.
Is that clause in there?
No, the clause in there about the nuisance monitoring.
If they breach that, is that clause already in there now? That will be what happens, the consequence of breach?
No, but we've left it fairly open because we just talk about mitigation measures. What those measures are, we don't identify, but that also, we've got to remember that news monitoring condition also covers the activity itself as well. So if there's a complaint about not something in regard to the tow trucks, that the mitigation measures may be different. So we keep that open, and then we can obviously, if the complaint occurs, we would deal with it then.
Councillor Mathers.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this is a hard one, Mr. Mayor. It just shows you how important the team that Angus's team is doing in regards to town planning moving forward. You know, we can't unwind, you know, having industrial areas, you know, that are backing onto residents. But I think it's crucial that we make sure that, you know, our town planners are not doing the same thing moving forward. And I'm sure they're a great team, so I'm sure we won't be dealing with that. But that's the nature of the business that we've got here with Rockhampton and the way it's set up at the moment. But we've got to be mindful of, you know, doing the right thing by the residential neighbours and the commercial neighbours there as well. It's concerning to me that the applicant has gone in and already started setting up, but we can't do too much about that because it doesn't stop them from doing it. But in regards to the tow trucks, I'm not an expert in the automotive industry at all, but I have got quite a lengthy experience in it. Under normal circumstances, to my knowledge, most of the tow truck operators have a holding yard. So if they go to an accident, you know, Menzies, for instance, is on Elphinstone Street. There's a few different places. Generally, they have a holding yard. So if a car's picked up from an accident, the car is taken to a holding yard, and then the insurance company works out where it goes, and then it gets tow trucked from there to whatever the panel shop is that's going to do the repairs. So I would think that the movements that we're talking about here should be very minimal. But because they are minimal, maybe it is something that we can talk to them about restricting, you know, the hours of tow truck use if it wasn't on a Sunday, not early or not late at night or something like that. Because to my knowledge, unless they're running their own tow trucks, most of the contract tow truck drivers around town do it, and they've got their own holding yards. So it's something that we, you know, that we may be able to talk to the applicant about.
Yeah, I think that's a process. If those complaints come in and if they're generated, then options to look at the mitigation of that issue from there. It's clearly in the approval that we're able to move on that. Councillor Wickerson, then Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to say basically exactly the same as Councillor Mather said, that these tow truck operators do have holding yards, the ones that I know of anyway. Because the other problem is if they drop say, an expensive vehicle off in the middle of the night and there's no one there to receive it, whose responsibility if someone comes and takes the mag wheels off it or worse, you know? So I think that wouldn't happen that often, and I think in the report it says it's a rare occasion, but if it is that rare, the impact if we put the restrictions on now about the delivery of those vehicles in the middle of the night before we get complaints, I'd be more comfortable with that. I mean, if it is that rare, it's not going to impact their business usually, and then it's up to the tow truck operators to hold the car. As we talked about earlier in the debate, that, you know, they probably wouldn't know where they're going to take it anyway, so I don't understand why they would be dropping it off. But if it is that rare, why not put the restriction in now with the conditions before it becomes a problem? Because there might be someone sitting back and they never complain, but they just put up with it, and we've got to look after those concerns too. So, and then if we do put in the conditions, that might force a debate with the people lodging the submission, and we'll thrash it out then rather than wait for a complaint to come back. And then it's always harder to deal with it retrospectively, I think. And there's some come up before with car washes and things with lights in windows, and it's always messy to try and come back later on after the fact and do it, but we get ahead of that first.
Amanda, you mentioned before that may not be acceptable, or?
Through the chair, yeah. I mean, it's hard. I can't speak on behalf of the applicant, but as I said, discussions I've had with them, and the way we've conditioned it, I think that we've conditioned it. We've done a risk assessment of it and had a look at it from what we think the impacts would do, and we feel that the conditions do cover it. They, as I said, they're at more risk because we could simply just say these are your operating hours. No, you know, no tow trucks potentially if we attach that to the land use. They weren't, as I said, they weren't concerned that we had no mention of the fact that they could enter the site after hours to drop off, because they know that it's not going to be that regularly, and obviously they don't think there's going to be any impacts to the surrounding residents. But yeah, as I said, I can't really speak on their behalf and what their operations and how much that will impact their operations. But it seemed to be something that wasn't going to be regular, and they didn't, as I said, they didn't have concerns with the way we've conditioned it. So they had an ability to negotiate on those conditions or get them amended prior to coming to this council meeting, and they didn't. Yeah, they were quite happy with what was proposed.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, so thanks, Mr. Chair. Amanda, I'm trying to understand condition 8.5. So unless people who have a complaint contact councillors, how do we know how many people have contacted general inquiries to complain about a nuisance noise, etc.? So you're saying that nuisance monitoring must be undertaken and recorded within 3 months, so they can keep going, annoying the neighbours for 3 months before it's investigated, and then it comes to council in 14 days. Well, I've never seen one of those reports ever.
No, I think that's
true.
Amanda?
Yeah, through the chair, yeah, to be honest, we don't. We put that condition on there in these instances to safeguard us. You've got to remember a noise report's also been provided for the proposal, and there wasn't any suggested mitigation measures in that. That is, the 3 months is if there's a one-off occasion where they make some noise, is probably unreasonable. The noise has to be a continued issue, so it's over a period of time, and then they've got to submit it to council. I don't remember us ever needing to use or take action on those conditions. It doesn't happen very often because in most cases they have provided noise reports and then we have assessed the impacts. That's just an additional safeguard for council if in the unexpected circumstance where there is some issues with the proposal.
Okay. Thanks, Amanda. Councillor, I think we've exhausted all the questions there, and thanks very much, Amanda, for answering that. Councillors, I now seek to a mover and a seconder with regards to the officer's recommendation. Could I have a mover? Move Councillor Latcham, a seconder. Councillor Mathers. Put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? the motion is lost. So cancelled, yep.
You will have to have reasons, Mayor. That'll have to be placed on record. They'll have to be planning reasons as well.
Do we need to record who voted in favour and who...
You don't have to, if the motion's lost, but the council will have to determine the reasons why you went against the officer's recommendation and for the refusal. So it might be time to adjourn.
Yes, we may need to do that. The motion has been lost. Councillors, I'm mindful of the time. We might call for an adjournment and come back at 20 to 11, if that's okay. I'll seek a mover. Do I need a mover? Or I'll move? I'll move and we take an adjournment for 15 minutes. Put that, those in favour? Thank you.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming. we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming. I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind.
Serenity now. Thank you very much, Evan. Councillors, I'll resume the council meeting. Thanks very much for that recess. We move on, and I see we have a mover
Yes, thank you,
to
Mr.
the
Mayor.
recommendation.
Yeah,
Councillor Kirkland.
I'd like to move that we accept the officer's recommendation that it be approved with the additional condition being inserted into 8.1.3. The condition is that any movement of delivery vehicles must be restricted to operating hours as per condition 8.1. Seeking a seconder.
So should we just amend it to 8.8? Suggest it goes into 8.8, exactly the same as what you just said.
Oh, okay, so,
It goes after this one. It's the last one.
okay, so, oh, yeah,
And you want
insert it into
8.8.
8.8.
Yep. So Councillor Kirkland, you're happy to move adding an additional item there to 8.8, that movement of delivery vehicles must be restricted to the operating hours as per condition 8.1. Happy to move?
Yes,
Seek a
I am.
Seconder? Seconder, Councillor Wickerson.
Can I speak to it, if I may?
If you wish.
Thank you. I just would like to say that the officers have done all due diligence and certainly put together a very tightly conditioned response to the applicants, and that there are measures that are now in place that will mitigate any of the breaches of the conditions, and I congratulate the officers, and I have absolute respect for the officers and their legal knowledge around all of this space, and certainly where we stand with the planning regulations. And so with that, I'm happy to move forward with this additional condition.
That's said. No other speakers. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, councillors. Unanimously. We move on. Infrastructure 11.8, Capital Projects Report for October 2021. Councillor
Mayor, I've got
Smith, got a
I've got
conflict?
a conflict with two of them. Can we discuss the others? Is that possible?
Yes, we just need to have a look.
Of
Of
the airport levy and
and the Mount Morgan water supply?
the water security.
The
Water
airport
security.
is the next item. It's not in the same report.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Pete. I'm still trying to catch up.
No,
It's not the Alliance Maintenance Facility, is in...
Yeah, sorry, the Alliance Maintenance Facility.
Oh, this is the next item, so it'll just be the exclusion of the Mount Morgan water security. Is that correct?
Yep, yes, and the Alliance project. Just looking at the list. Yeah, it's the second one on the list, the Alliance,
Yep.
and
Maintenance
the-
facility as part of the projects, Peter?
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Morning, Mayor, councillors. This is the capital project report from Project Delivery for October. I'm not going to go through individual projects. I'll let you ask questions. The important point at the moment is capital expenditure is quite low, but we will adjust the budget to reflect the program over the next month or so. So a number of the capital expenditures will have to be moved to the next financial year. I'm happy to take questions. There is only one project that would like to talk about, and that is the Cultural Precinct activation works. But to talk about that, we would need to go into confidential. So if
Councillors, there's no other questions to any of the other projects that are there. We're asking to move into closed session with regards to that project. So just, I don't see any lights on, so I might seek a mover or a seconder that we move into closed session. I just need to word it, councillors.
We've been having some ongoing discussions with the adjoining property owners, so this is the background for the reasons for taking it into closed. No, we're not in closed session yet. Okay. So this is the summary of the reasons why we're going into closed session, is that we've been having ongoing discussions with the adjoining property owners of that adjoins our property down in East Street. The discussion that we're likely to have will potentially cause prejudice to the interest of council, and also we are providing some legal advice on the way through there, Mr Mayor. So it's proposed that you close this session, or this part of the council meeting under section, I've got to remember the new ones, 254J, 3E and G of the regulations. And from that, so if you want to do that, Mayor, you need a motion for that one.
Okay, happy to do that. Could I seek a mover and a second with we move into closed discussion? Move Councillor Wickerson, seconded Councillor Mathers.
And then you'll need a second motion to go into closed session.
Put the first one. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. I'm happy to move that we move into closed session. Seek a seconder, Councillor Wickerson. I'll put that. Those in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you.
The world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Thank you. Meeting's resumed. Peter, back to the agenda items. If any more information to provide to that report?
No more on the October report.
If not, councillors, could I seek a mover and a seconder with regards to the officer's recommendation? Councillor Kirkland, Councillor Mathers. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you.
That's two other items that we excluded, Mr Mayor.
Two items out of that report. The Alliance and the...
Mount Morgan's soup water.
Thank you, Peter.
So the two items were Alliance, wasn't it? Yep. So Alliance, we are waiting for a funding agreement to be signed. So there's a contractor that's been selected by Alliance, but we can't move at the moment until we get a signed funding agreement.
Yeah,
so
we moved out.
that's where it sits, Ross, isn't it? Federal, yes.
Sorry, Peter, what was the update on that? I missed it.
It's a federal government, the 25 million. So if you see the report, I've got 25 million pending. So that's why that has to be signed off by the government and ourselves, and it's taking a little bit of time. Yeah, Andrew's chasing as much as he can, but they're not the most responsive times, are they?
Peter, is there, if there's election and caretakers and all that sort of thing involved in that?
If the agreements haven't been signed by both parties, normally they go into a bit of a park. And what we found, Mr Mayor, is that sometimes they never proceed after an election. So, yeah.
Okay. Right, thank you, Peter.
And the next project is Mount Morgan Water. So that project has been kicked off, and we've engaged AECOM to undertake the work. I'm hoping that we get an initial report of some form. Where is it here? I've got 17th of December. So depending on the state of that report, I may just email that out for information, and we'll talk about it in the following year. But the whole project is aimed to be finished by the 15th of April, so it's a very rapid project, and they have got a lot of resources in on it at the moment. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Peter. No questions to any of those updates? The officer recommendation that those project monthly reports, the Alliance Maintenance Facility and the Mount Morgan Water Security be received. I'm happy to move. Seek a seconder. Councillor Kirkland. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. We invite Councillor Smith back into the room, please. Oh, okay. Well, Councillor Smith, you may just warm the seat for a split second because we move on to the Airport Precinct Feasibility Study Project. So I think you've declared a conflict in this one. Thank you, sorry. That was my bad. Building up the 10,000 steps. Thank you very much, Peter.
flux yesterday. I went and checked. We will be getting a report, and it's probably prior to the 16th of February, so early next year, which will contain the number of properties affected, you know, the levels and potential for both options. So we will have that information. We'll also have the information relating to the cost to construct either of those options as well. So we should have, I hope, all the information early next year. Okay.
Councillor Rutherford.
Just to thank Peter for that. That's it's great to hear. So thank you for following that up.
Thank you. Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just to clarify through you to Peter, that's pre-ring road calculations, or I know it was a bit of a flinching game. But,
that will be on the assumption the ring road is constructed.
Is constructed, okay.
Because it's ahead of us now. Early when we were doing this, there was a bit of toing and throwing, but it will be in.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No further questions with regards to that report, officer report. I'll seek a mover and a seconder. Move Councillor Rutherford, seconding Councillor Mathers. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to 11.10. Sorry, Councillor Smith. She just doesn't have a conflict in this one, we hope. Tender consideration plan for the completion of the Glenbull Water Treatment Plant Solar Farm project. And we'll go to you with this one. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, so this is a tender consideration plan for the completion of the Glenmore Water Treatment Plant Solar Project Farm. It's looking at taking the opportunity to use the existing contractor on site, Alliance Automation. There is some potential savings and synergy by using this company. As I've said yesterday and previously, a full report on what we can get as a solution and the amount of solar power will be reported to Council prior to going forward.
Thank you, Peter. I think we had some questions. Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks, Mayor. Through you to Peter. Just to clarify again, have we had any conversations with this potential tenderer about use of any pre-existing equipment? And do we know whether...
I think there's some...
I'm going to suggest we go into confidential again.
Yep.
Okay, we won't take that offline then. That's interesting. Yep, understood.
Okay. Councillors, there are some sensitivities around this one, and just if we need to, we may require, if the questions become in that space, we may need to move into closed session, but being mindful of that, we don't want to jeopardise the council in any way. So if there are further questions, Councillor Kirkland?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to move that we receive the recommendation.
Seek a seconder. Councillor Wickerson. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Peter. Moving on to budget, governance and other matters, 11.11. Is it current grant programs and projects recommendations? Martin Crowe or Peter? Building our regions. Is Peter online? Martin online, sorry.
Yeah, Mayor, I believe Ian Davies will be taking the lead on this.
Okay,
report.
we might... Anne, would you like to speak to the report, please?
Always an issue when it's tagged.
Thanks very much, Ian.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors. The report that I'm putting forward is just for your information about a number of grant programs that have recently been announced and the projects that have been identified to seek funding underneath each of those programs. I'll just run through them quickly, the grant programs and the recommended programs, and that's the Building Our Regions grant, which we're proposing to fund a portion of the North Rocky sewage treatment plant, which covers, it's detailed in the report what parts of that project are covered. We're seeking $2 million in funding with the $10 million to be made up by our contribution. At this point, the grant is at an EOI stage, so we put in an expression of interest, we find out if we're successful, and then we put in a detailed application. The next grant is the Preparing Australian Communities program, which is to fund, I guess, disaster mitigation programs. And underneath this program, there are three, I guess, types of disasters, natural disasters that could be funded. And we are eligible for only two of those, which are cyclones and not bushfire, however. And then the other, the project that we're putting forward for that is the Grace Mere bulk water supply security, which is to increase the amount of available water at that location. Then the other grant program, the next one is the one that is another round of the Heavy Vehicle Safety and Productivity Program and the Bridges Renewal Program. There are a number of road projects and bridge projects that are included in the report that are being put forward for funding. They all have budget allocations so far, so we're seeking the maximum allowed underneath the program for funding for those. The next grant program is the North Queensland Disaster Mitigation Program, and that will cover either planning or construction projects as well. And we've got a number of priority projects that have been identified, which include Moores Creek catchment and South Rockhampton catchment floodplain risk management studies, and the climate risk planning for Rockhampton region. And then the final grant program is the CQ Bushfires Flexible Funding, which is another one that's come around. This is for funding a community education disaster management officer. We're seeking 100% of the grant funding for that. And that position would undertake a number of community engagement and education programs. So those are the projects that we have associated with each of those grant programs. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Alison. Anne, sorry, would there be any questions there, Councillor Smith?
Oh, yeah, just, I think Councillor Lutton.
Yeah, you're right.
With the last one, the CQ Bushfires Flexible Funding, didn't we apply for a similar thing in another grant program not long ago?
Yeah, there's another application I think that's out there as well. That's correct, Dan?
Yes, that's right. Another round has come around rather quickly for this particular grant program, which probably makes it seem like we're there again. So yes, yeah.
So this funding is for bushfires only, and would that person work hand in hand with the employee, the staff member we've already got in disaster? Like, how does that work in with?
Through Liz in the disaster space. Peter?
Through the Chair, I think that would actually be a continuation of the work that's currently been done by that officer. It would enable us to extend that appointment and continue that work.
Thanks, Martin.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Latcham, I lose that light in the vision, but apologies for that.
That's all right.
Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and through to Anne. Anne, are you able to provide any more information on the Wandle Walking Network plan? Whereabouts roughly would be located? Is it around the showgrounds or?
I might defer to Martin for that, but I can just tell you a little bit about how we arrived at that particular location. In that the grant program funds the development of a walking network program plan, which must be based around certain identified centres, and they're quite explicit about the type of centre that needs to be built around, which some of those include schools, CBD, transportation, and whatnot. So one of the things that we, in talking with Stuart and Aaron and others about what would be the most beneficial area for this, it has to be within a two kilometre radius of that centre. And it was felt that going through this exercise would actually provide council with a lot of information that could be used over a number of projects that are related to that area, but also that the process of developing that network plan would be used, that be applied elsewhere for other particular kinds of projects. But I'll defer now to Martin to go specifically about the Wandle area then.
Thanks, Martin.
I suppose through the chair, the primary destination we've picked there is actually the Hall State School, Hall State Primary School. We had a number of choices there. We could have based it around the Rocky High State School, the Wandle sort of commercial area, the showgrounds, but just by location-wise, the Hall, using a 2 kilometre radius from that particular point, picks up a lot more secondary destinations, including parts of the CBD, hospitals, a lot of the other schools, and sporting precincts and the like. So in some ways, this is a real pilot program. These planning guidelines have only very recently come out. We haven't used them before. We sort of considered, Wandle's probably the area that has the least footpath network at this point in time and the least planning. So doing this as a pilot for that area seemed to make sense for us. And if it proves to be a good process, using these state guidelines, which are really using a GIS-based tool to try and pick up the preferred route selections, if it proves to be a really good process, and we would run that out across the rest of the urban areas. That's the strategy at this point in time.
Secondary question. I guess there's obviously a lot of different areas within the Rockhampton region that would have qualified. I've read the guidelines quite specifically, and I guess my suggestion would have been, given the amount of work that's been done around Stockland in North Rockhampton, the missing link near the North Rockhampton Cemetery would have been an ideal one, which would have ticked the box on all of these ones on the criteria. I'm just surprised it wasn't considered, or was it considered?
I think we looked at a number of different, through the chair, Councillor Atcham, I think we looked at a number of different areas, and I believe that planning is already in place for that connection past the North Rocky Cemetery. I suppose what drew us more to the Wandle precinct is that we weren't as advanced in our planning for that area, and it was probably the area that has the least footpath or existing footpath network. So we thought we'd get the most benefit out of doing some planning work for that area, rather than some of those other areas of the city, including North Rocky, where we have in the past, I suppose, done a reasonable amount of planning around that. So that's not to say we're going to won't go back and use this process to redo those areas. That's, I suppose, why we want to do pilot it, I suppose, in the Wandle precinct, and see how beneficial it would be to running it out across the remainder of the urban areas.
That's okay, thank you. I just needed to get a bit of an understanding of why it was selected, and if it wasn't on and identified as a missing link or a pathway in the next couple of years, then I understand that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Atcham. Councillor Rutherford?
Yeah, I've got a bit of a question, but I feel almost a little greedy asking for it. And it's about the North Rocky Sewage Treatment Plant upgrade works. And if we're going for a bucket of money that only gives us $2 million of the $12 million cost of the project, and generally once we start a project, you can't get additional funding. So I guess my question is this the best bucket for us to be?
I think we're looking for a number of buckets, and I'm not sure whether one bucket will be sufficient. I'll let Peter clarify.
I wish the two was 20 or 200, but this program, that's the maximum you can ask for,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
It's specifically for water and sewer projects, and we have picked, I should have checked the words before I jumped up here, we have picked a piece that we can compartmentalise, so we won't be restricted by applying for other grants because the project has started, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got that from the report.
Yeah.
I just thought, well, because, you know, I guess the most we can possibly hope for is 2 million out of that 12 million. So I guess if that's the best we can do, that's the best we can do. I was just hoping maybe for something a bit more.
I agree.
Yeah.
A lot more. Anyway, Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a comment, just with all these different grants out there, I was just surprised, especially leading up to the Olympics in the future, that there wasn't a sport and rec grant that had been applied for to either upgrade lighting on the sporting fields for council facilities. Is that something that should be a bit more of a priority in future?
And this is Evan here. I don't think we've had any come through of late, have we, for Olympics or sports funding?
No, there was a lighting one that we were considering. However, looking at the ability to fit within the constraints of that particular grant, we weren't able to get an application that would have satisfied the requirements of the grant itself. We've talked to the sport and rec people, the Queensland government sport and rec people, and they're aware of our needs, and we're working very, very closely with them. So as these particular funding things come up, we make sure that we put forward an application that is likely to be considered. And this time around, what we had just was not able to meet the requirements.
Thank you. Thanks, Anne. And I think as we move on to our next agenda item, there's a project in there that we're still working on that we need a little bit more detail to be able to progress that, and I'm sure there's opportunities going forward rather than this round that we'll be looking to seek that sporting funding. Okay, councillors, there's no further questions to that report. Could I seek a mover and a seconder to adopt that? Move Councillor Kirkland, second Councillor Smith. I'll put that. Those in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you. Move on to the last one, 11.2, the federal election advocacy priorities.
Mr Chair, I've got a conflict with the Flynn list, but I need to just add the Mount Morgan water security to my conflict.
Water security and the sale yards.
The sale yards, yeah.
If we could leave with those items out of the discussion until...
Or else, in Capricornia, so I'm fine with Capricornia.
Mm-hmm. Sorry?
That's going to be difficult to exclude them.
Is it?
Yeah, it really will be.
Could we deal with Capricornia and then deal with Flynn?
We should be able to.
Separate bundles? So if we just do Capricornia first, and then when we leave into Flynn, Councillor Smith will declare in that whole area, basically. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Jen.
Okay. Thanks very much, Mayor and councillors.
We are getting serious.
So this report proposes the adoption of a list of advocacy priorities for the federal election, and we'll do Flynn and Capricornia separately. The priorities have been workshopped by councillors, and they've come from either priorities that council have adopted earlier this year or that were identified as essential to the community as we work through the process. The list is focused on critical infrastructure projects and projects that will support jobs and growth for the region. They
include both essential infrastructure as well as social infrastructure projects, and the report is seeking the endorsement of these projects as Council's priority projects for advocacy in the lead up to the federal election. So if there are any questions about...
Questions to Jen on those priorities? I think you've done a good job, Jen. I think we might move into the... Sorry?
I have a query. With the showgrounds redevelopment, we've looked at a couple of options, but we've got nothing
No, but
bedded
still,
into that.
there's still a little bit more detail to come back, Councillor. That's
Yeah.
So through the chair, tomorrow we're having a workshop.
Are we?
Oh, come on now.
Not another one.
Yeah, so we'll be discussing that at the workshop tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, good.
Thank you. Thanks, Alicia. Jen, so we might move on to the seats of Flynn. Do we need to move? Okay, I'll move. Seek a mover in a second for the advocacy ones for the Capricornia. Move Councillor Wickerson, seconded Councillor Kirkland. I'll put that. Those in favour? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. And we might move into Flynn, but Councillor Smith will leave the room. Okay, thank you. Well, Jen, thanks very much. We'll move on to Flynn.
Yeah, so largely the same. These have been, again, most of these have come from Council's previously endorsed priorities, or they've been worked through during the workshop process. Yeah.
And that's they'll be distributed to the candidates after this. They'll be ready to go. So, councillors, are there any questions with regards to the items in Flynn? If not, seek a mover and a seconder. Move Councillor Rutherford, seconded Councillor Mathers. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks very much, Jen and the team, for putting that information together. I think it has really highlighted, and the time that we've put into this really does allow us to work on those priorities, regardless whether they're successful or not. There's still priorities that the council will need to keep forward, moving forward. But hopefully we get some support in the upcoming federal election, which will be key to providing these critical projects for our community moving forward. So thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay, councillors, we move on. Notice of motions nil. 13 questions on notice nil. Urgent business and questions 14.1. Councillor Kirkland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, as per my email circulated yesterday, I'd like to present a motion. The nature of the motion, I believe, means that the matter can't wait for another scheduled council meeting. The motion reads as follows. A special council meeting, reads as follows. That Rockhampton Regional Council submit a letter to our State Premier following the offer to Queensland councils to provide feedback on her government's proposal to introduce COVID-19 restrictions for unvaccinated persons from the 17th of December 2021, advising that A. Over the last week, councillors have been inundated with communications from local community and business owners expressing strong and unreserved concern about the social and financial impacts that the new restrictions will have on businesses, patrons and employees. B. Business owners and employees represented in their communications that vaccination should be an individual's choice and employers should not be forced to exclude valued employees from the workplace for exercising that choice. C. Examples from the communications received expressed that mandated restrictions will hinder businesses from operating to their fullest potential due to loss of the ability to conduct business as usual and loss of critical staff, some to the point of closure. D. Local businesses remain unsure of their obligations and liabilities for employees under work health and safety legislation. And 2, Council respectfully seeks the support of the Premier in taking into account the voice put forward by the business community, and that she reconsider the current decision of introducing mandated restrictions from December the 17th, 2021. Seeking a seconder.
Councillor Latcham, prepared to second. Councillor's now CEO.
I think if councillors just a bit of caution around conflicts of interest, if you potentially do have one or want to raise it at the council table, it'd be worthwhile doing it now.
Yes, so if I may. Mr Mayor, I'd begin by informing Council that I myself am a local business owner. The position may be considered a conflict by some, yet as the proposed mandates do not target my business, I do not believe that I have a conflict of interest. In addition, the matter I wish to present represents not only the entire Rockhampton Regional Council, but in fact the entire state of Queensland, and as such I do not stand to gain or lose any more than the greater populace. I'm happy for councillors to put that to the vote if they feel necessary.
Councillors, we need to vote on the perceived conflict there. Could I seek a mover and a seconder with regards to Councillor Kirkland
staying
in the meeting? Move Councillor Mathers, a seconder. Councillor Rutherford, I'll put that. Those in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you. Councillor Latcham.
Likewise, Mr Mayor, I'm a trustee of a trust, family trust that operates, leases it out to a business, a not-for-profit club that leases. So it itself would be defined as a business, and as such, similar to Councillor Kirkland, I would just like to bring it to the table for a vote to see that I could remain during this discussion.
Councillor Latcham, again, do we have a mover? Move Councillor Smith, seconder. Councillor Wickerson, I'll put that. Those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. Councillors, I'd like to move that the matter lay on the table pending, and my reason for that is there is a live letter that through the directors of the Central Queensland Organisations of Council penned last Friday to send to the Premier. I'd like to read that and then move that the matter lay on the table until our next council meeting next Tuesday, pending advice from seeking advice from that letter outcome. I'll read the letter. Dear Premier, I write as Chair of the Central Queensland Regional Organisations of Council to raise grave concerns about the economic and social impacts. Sorry, I've been advised that the procedural motion is just straight to the debate, straight to the vote. So I'd move that the matter lay on the table, pending advice from the letter that's been sent to the Premier from the Central Queensland or Regional Organisations of Council with their concerns. I'll put that to the vote.
Excuse me.
No debate. Sorry.
No debate.
Oh, so I've got something that I wanted to add to it.
Okay, sorry, I'll just go to the thing. With the procedural motion, there's only a mover. There is no debate, questions. The motion is put directly to the table as a procedural motion.
Councillor Mathers has a petition there that he'd like to table. They were separate to this.
I didn't know it was coming.
Yeah, you moved a procedural motion, Mr Mayor, unless
We
you
need to
withdraw that one.
No, councillors, I'll continue with the procedural motion that I'd seek the outcome from that letter from the Central Queensland Organisations of Council with regard to that. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Those opposed? Call a division. Myself, Councillor Wickerson, Councillor Rutherford, Councillor Smith, vote in favour. Those in favour, myself, Councillor Wickerson, Councillor Rutherford, Councillor Smith. Those opposed, Rutherford, Smith, myself. Those opposed, Councillor Mathers, Councillor Kirkland and Councillor Latcham. Thank you. Councillors, we move on to the closure of the meeting. I'd like to thank everyone for your attendance and close the meeting. Thanks very much.
So does that mean it's laid on the table now, or how does that work? It is, yeah.
Excuse me. Do I not get to present this?
As a separate...
It's a separate, it's still under, as in the...
Just hang on, Councillor. I'll just get some clarification on the CEO, whether that's related to the same issue.
I still had something for urgent business.
With the petition to table in regards to that same...
Mr CEO, I had no idea this was coming. It was just given to me, yeah, as urgent business.
Separate matter. Okay, look, I'm happy to... again, I'll close the meeting. Sorry. Okay. Righto, we haven't officially closed, so thank you for... I was probably rolling on a bit too quick there, so... Councillor Kirkland, that is the motion that I put.
Yeah, I would have liked a time. Saying that we would come back next
The wording, that's not quite right.
No, I think it was council meeting next Tuesday.
Yeah,
What I'd said.
you told me you would do that.
Evan, just on that wording, it was the meeting, next Tuesday's meeting, you made a lay on the table till next Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll fix it up, Mr Mayor. We're catching up.
Now, moving on to another matter, Councillor Mathers.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, I do apologise. I know this is probably not the way it should normally go, but I was handed this petition halfway through the meeting today, so if I had known it was coming, or if I had it earlier, I would have handed it in and spoke about it when Councillor Rutherford spoke about her petition. Mr Mayor, the first thing I'd like to say is I applaud you and your fellow mayors for penning that letter that you have and that you're putting forward to it. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. I myself have been backwards and forwards like all councillors. You know, we've received a number of emails and correspondence with people voicing their opinions. I would also like to say that a lot of people have been using words inundation and that sort of stuff. And you know, really, I think at my last count was about 150 odd emails. So even though these people have been very loud and voicing their opinion, which I really appreciate, and that's what a democratic society is there for. It's still a very small percentage of the population as well, so I'm very mindful of that. But I did have a meeting or a chat with the people that were out the front, and they have asked me to hand forward to the table this petition. I'll quickly read the petition. So it says, Mr Evan Partridge, CEO, Rockhampton Regional Council, the Mayor and Councillors, we the undersigned respectfully request that the Mayor and Rockhampton Regional Council, Tony Williams, the Mayor of Rockhampton Regional Council, Tony Williams, write to the Premier of Queensland and ask her that her government proposed mandate of segregated society from the 17th of December 2021 not be brought into being. So I'd just like to table that petition and also put my support behind writing a letter to the Premier. Once again, I think this discussions that we're having, I don't think it needs to be about whether people should be vaccinated or not vaccinated. My support is behind the small businesses and businesses not being forced to have to choose who is vaccinated and who's not.
Petition.
Just tabling the petition. That's all it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do I need to move that the petition be received? Councillor Mathers, seconded Councillor Kirkland. Put that. Those in favour? The motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillors, I'll have that letter publicly available for online for people to read. So it's there where that work had been done by the directors of the CQ Rock. That said, no further business. I'll close the meeting and thank everyone for your attendance.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.